This is the Seven Figure Standard Podcast, hosted by Arash and Mykie Stiller, with mindset and strategies to help you break through and create personal freedom.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Seven Figure Standard Podcast. I'm Mykie Stiller, joined by my co-host, Arash and we're so thrilled to be back with you for another episode. Today, we're going to talk about getting and staying motivated, which I think is a fun topic because everybody wants to be motivated all the time, but the truth is you're just not. And so what do the pros do? What do the people who are really making it happen do when they don't have that motivation? Arash, how are you?
I'm great, Mykie. How are you?
I am doing great as well. I've got a question for you.
Sure.
Are you always motivated?
I'd say, I'm thinking of this. My dominant place is for motivation. I would say 95% of the time.
Okay, and what motivates you?
I mean, I'm motivated so differently now than I used to be. But like my greatest motivation is to get better. That is my greatest motivation. So I'm constantly have goals in my mind. And they could be different types of goals. I have my big goal, and then I have different types of goals. Like I'm very motivated. Motivation, I've never lacked. Really, my whole life. Like I've never lacked motivation. I've had that as a part of me. Even I remember I was in the corporate world and I didn't get any training. And I remember the first, I was working business to business sales, and I went out in the field and I did the presentation. It was so bad. I can't even begin to tell you how bad it was. And I was walking to my car and it was like the walk of shame. And I said, I do not want to go get my master's degree. And I said, I better figure out how to sell. And because I was in a sales position, and that motivated me. And I taught myself how to do it. I took myself from the bottom of the company, and the guy who hired me, I became his boss. I took his title. But I remember that day very well. And I've never had an issue with motivation. I used to look at motivation very differently. And what I look at it now is I can motivate somebody for a short period of time. The great speakers can motivate them for a short period of time, but not long term. Like we have to be really good at motivating ourselves. And that's why it all comes down to making a decision of how you want to live. Like for me, I love being productive. And so I feel better about myself when I'm focused on learning more, getting better at what I'm doing. And so I've never had that issue. What about you?
You know, it's interesting. I am the same way. I'm an Enneagram 3 for anybody who's interested in Enneagrams, which is like an achiever. So you have to achieve things every day to feel productive and happy and fulfilled, or I do. And so, but I think a lot of people are looking to the outside to be motivated. And the difference is that I was hearing you just now, and what I relate to is being self-motivated. So even when you don't necessarily feel like pumped up to do something, your image of yourself and your habits take over and you do it anyways.
Yeah, there's no question. I think self-motivation is the greatest form of leadership. I think it's a great leadership quality because when you're always needing somebody else to motivate you, what happens when they're not there? Mm-hmm. And that's why I think for me, everything starts with what do you want? Like what type of life do you want? The first thing we have to decide is what makes you feel good and what do you want to experience in your life? And to me, goals are essential for somebody to be motivated. And like I even think about when I go in the gym, like I don't, like my trainer knows he can't talk to me a certain way. Like, I don't like when he says, try to do this many reps. And I always correct him so he doesn't do it anymore. So it's like, I go in there with a purpose. So I think being purposeful is very important with motivation, where you're looking at what you want to do and how you want to do it. And a lot of people, like why they struggle with motivation, because they don't have a goal. They may have something written down, but if they measure their commitment level and measure if their behaviors are changing, they'll see if they have a goal. You'll watch people with goals and it's exuding off of them. That's all they talk about with each other. That's all they talk about. And so Like my brother and I are very close. We're very close. And he's always, I love when he calls me. He'll be like, "Oh, I just got this client and I did this and I did that," because everything's coming from the goal. I love hearing it. When we're talking, it's like, "Oh, we hit our personal best, or we did this, or we didn't do it." I'm just as much motivated from the failures that I am the successes. Because I think pain can be good. Now, this could be a little controversial for people, but I think pain can be really good. Because when you feel it, you never want to feel it again. So that's a motivator. So each individual has to see, what are they more motivated by, pain or pleasure? Like you look at somebody like David Goggins, for example, he talks a lot about suffering, and that's his motivator. So we all have different forms of motivation, of either extreme, like I think David is very extreme in some of the things that he's challenged himself, or you look at other people who are just like they are goal achievers. Now, for the person who's not motivated, this is a better thing for them, is ask yourself, why am I not setting goals that are worthy of me? Because you could set small goals. That doesn't mean it's going to motivate you. When you set these big world-class goals that really inspire you to live that way and you commit to it, you won't have a problem with motivation.
So I think I've seen a lot of people who set a goal and they get really motivated. They're really strong starters, but the goal does not happen, or they're not seeing progress as quickly as they would like. And so they're not getting that instant gratification. They're not getting any, visual or physical taste of the goal. And so they lose that motivation before the goal comes to fruition. How do you keep the motivation when you're in the goal achieving process before you're seeing any results?
I mean, you're talking about me 17 years ago. That was me. And like I can relate with that very well. It actually still motivated me, but I was always stuck because I gave up too soon. See, we've got to understand, we've got to stack wins. Forget about the outside. We've got to stop being so physical and not letting the outside stop our progress. Because you may have to do a behavior for 6 weeks before you're going to see any movement. But I think that's the way the universe tests us, to see how badly we want it. And we have to create processes. The processes and the protocols we create in our life is going to create success by default. So I could relate to that person because I wasn't doing it. I would always start, stop, start, stop. It's not necessarily that I lost motivation. I just was working with a very poor mindset. If you really look at it, I was very unprepared mentally. And I was letting the result dictate my identity, which was it wasn't just a bad idea. It was a terrible idea. And so I never went anywhere. And then when I changed that, everything changed. And the thing is, a lot of people get stuck with that because they don't believe they can achieve it. So they give in. They get motivated. They say, "I'm going to change my health. I'm going to change my income." So they try to use their will and go really hard. And then they'll start creating results and it tempers off. And then guess what? They go back to their old program. So that's why we have to understand how our mind works. We have to understand why we set goals, why goals are important. And then the real work is overcoming the limiting version of ourselves, leveling up our thinking.
I wonder how much of motivation is really related to awareness. For example, whenever we're a baby and we're learning to walk, we don't stop trying to learn how to walk or being motivated to walk just because we fall down and we can't walk for months before we actually can. Or when we're first learning to drive, we don't stop trying to drive because it's hard in the beginning. You see so many people driving that it's possible, that you're going to be just fine, you're going to figure it out. But when we set a goal and maybe it's something that we haven't seen people in our inner circle achieve before, we think, "Oh, you know what? It's not possible. It was a bad goal. Never mind." Instead of staying motivated to get there and keep doing it through when it's hard and when you're bad until you get great. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think we're comparing it to our inner circle, but maybe our inner circle is outdated. Maybe our inner circle is not the person we want to become. So we've got to compare it to another inner circle. Your environment is so important. I think change never happens by chance. Change always happens by design. So let's say I wanted something much bigger than what my inner circle thinks. I wouldn't talk to them about it. Doesn't mean I'm getting rid of them, because I may have great relationships with them. But I'd want to go study the people who are doing the type of things that I want to do. And I want to study their behavior so closely. And see, motivation is everywhere now. Like if you look at all the podcasts, YouTube is 24/7. You can get information. Information isn't power. It's the application of the information that is power. So there's a lot of people who read hundreds of books, but all they're doing is gathering more information. It's the implementation of one book that you study deeply for 6 months, and you don't pick up another book. You actually implement the ideas. That's where the motivation will turn into, because you're motivated the more you feel good. So our job is to feel good all the time. If you look at wealth is always coming from us, not to us. So when somebody's really making it happen, I promise you, they're locked in to a goal. They have the right standards in place, right disciplines, and right processes. And that's what creates the wealth.
And so based on what you're saying, motivation almost happens by default from doing the work.
Yeah, it's always doing the work, but it always comes with a goal. Without a goal, none of it's possible. I'll tell you a story. My son and I were going for a walk the other day, and we were walking the dogs, and my son's very goal-oriented, and he's 12 years old, and he was telling me a story about one of his friends, and he goes, he's always in fear, and he goes, Dad, he doesn't have any goals. He goes, I couldn't imagine living without a goal. And I said, I wish adults could understand it as much as you do. You know, it was so profound that he has such an awareness to that already. And we get it because of the goals we're setting is where we're going. The goals set the direction where we're going. That's what the goals do. They literally set the direction where we're headed. And that's what creates motivation more than anything. See, you don't have to, here's the thing we've got to burn in. You don't have to be great to get started, but you have to start to be great. Like Don Shula has another quote. He was a Hall of Fame football coach. He said, it's the start that stops most people. Well, where does the motivation stop? Okay. They don't take each day interdependently of the previous day, so they don't recommit every day. Every day is day one, and you recommit to the type of life you want to live. And then you're never going to have to worry about motivation deterring from your life.
Rod, you just said something so profound, and I love that so much because it goes back to what you talk about. We've talked about it several times on the podcast about committing to being 1% better every single day. And so you're not committing to being 365% better in a year. You're literally chunking it down into a day. You can be motivated for a day. You can be great for a day. You can stay on track and be disciplined for a day. Is that the point?
Yeah, but we want to understand, everyone's heard 1% over the last few years, right? 1% better. Yeah. The key to implementing the 1% is defining where are you going to be 1% better. Like, is it going to be, I'm going to take 1% action with complete swagger? Am I going to do 1% of getting out of my comfort zone for the next 30 days? The 1% only works if it's exactly specific and it's defined. Mm-hmm. If we don't define it, we just say, oh, I'm going to get 1% better. How are you measuring that? So when you have something to measure it to, and you always want to measure it towards a behavior, that's what's going to bulletproof you in 6 months to create multiple quantum leaps by just that 1% rule.
So good. Okay, so if someone is finding themselves not motivated or not motivated more than they are motivated, would you say, and they think they have a goal, would you say that they are not yet emotionally involved with the goal? They haven't turned that want into a desire, or it's the wrong goal?
I don't think they have a goal.
Okay.
Even though they say they have a goal. A goal is when you know you have a goal, it wakes you up first thing in the morning. That's what you're thinking about. You know, and then you build in the right accountability too. You know, somebody can, in the beginning, they may need an accountability partner, because accountability is a success insurance policy. Accountability is what prevents you to drift. But eventually, the motivated individual, the disciplined individual will be their own best accountability partner. their processes will be their best accountability partner. So, a lot of us, I've been at times where I thought I had a goal. I'll tell you a story. Years ago, I was creating really good results. And I called our mentor and I said, I'm bored. And he goes, well, your results don't show that. And I said, he goes, but that makes sense because that's your paradigm. And I said, no. He goes, you don't have a goal. I said, I do have a goal. And he says, you already know how to earn money. Money's not a good goal for you. He said, you have to create a vision that really inspires you. And he said, will you do this? Will you write out a vision for me of what you really want? And then send it to me. So I wrote it out. I put a lot of energy into this. I did it right away. In that moment, I got off the phone with him, wrote it out. And I wrote it out and I sent it to him. He said, that's one of the best visions I've ever seen. And from that moment, I literally got unstuck. I didn't have a goal. I'll never forget what he told me. He says, you have the family, you have the car, you have the house, you have the money. What you don't have is a goal. And that's why I got stagnant. If we don't have a goal that inspires us, I mean a goal that we really have to build ourselves up to achieve it, it's not a worthy goal. Goals are what is so important because it's what makes us. Goals are about growing, not getting. So we want to create a goal that really inspires us. See, most people at the end of each year, they'll set their New Year's goals based on what they did the previous year. Not based on what they really want, not based on how they want to live, but they'll increase it by 5, 10% and measure it from what they did. But it's such an outdated process because what if they have a much stronger commitment this year than they did last year? What if they're really want to massively change their life? You're not comparing apples to apples anymore. See, the motivation will always be driven. The underlying of the motivation is the goal. That's why we always have to have a goal. And if we achieve a goal, we got to set another one, another bigger goal the next time. Because the goal achievement process is where the dopamine release happens. You'll find people who achieve a goal and then they get depressed after they achieve the goal. They get depressed because they're not working towards anything anymore. There's no reason for them to be motivated to do the disciplines. That's why it's important. As soon as you achieve a goal, set another one and set another one that is worthy of you.
Raj, this is turning out to be one of my favorite episodes that we've ever done, and I'm so glad. I think everyone is really going to benefit from this. Can we get into an action step? How can someone get and stay motivated?
Well, first of all, I want you to take a good look at yourself. Do I have a goal or do I have a wish? And is my goal worthy of me? If I achieve this goal, would I be so proud of myself or would it be just an okay goal? Would it just be an okay goal? And so we want to make sure our goals are to inspire us. Then you want to write this out, whatever the goal is, and then put it next to your nightstand. And then right next to it, what are the benefits of the goal? If I achieve this goal, what are the benefits that I'm going to receive? So we want to focus on the benefits, not just the goal. Like the benefit is it will develop me significantly. I'd be able to experience X, whatever it is. So we want to write out what the goal is. Ask ourselves the question, do I have a goal? The answer is yes. Okay. Do I have a goal that inspires me? Oh, that's interesting. The moment you hesitate, you know that goal doesn't inspire you. And then write out the benefits of what the goal that you commit to is. And then every day look at that benefit list. It could be 5 things. Mike, I was working with a corporate client and there was a couple of them that I'm working with. And I asked them what their goal is. So I told them the goal. They told me the goal. And you could see it in their face. It did not motivate them. Like it was not an inspired goal. And I said, I don't think this is your goal. They said, no, we've been taught how to set SMART goals. I said, forget about that when you're working with me. I want you to tell me what you want. I said, let me ask you a question. Does this goal inspire you? Both of them. They're the owners of the company. They said, no. We changed the goal. Their whole energy changed. They were afraid to go after and commit to something far greater. But when they did, everything changed in their face. But I'm not interested in just setting goals just to set them. Like, it's about what we're committing to that's going to create the motivation. Like, anybody can say, I'm going to set a goal and then leave it alone. There's no power in that. It's committing to the goal and then committing to develop yourself and get the right direction, create the right processes, because the goals always determine the process.
So good. Arash, I hope everybody listens to this episode not just once, but at least 2, 3, 4 times. You have gave so many golden nuggets in this episode that can help everyone. If you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave us a rating and a review, and tune in next week for another episode of the 7-Figure Standard podcast. Thanks, Arash.
Thanks, Mikey.
Thank you for listening to this episode of 7-Figure Standard. We hope you found the insights and strategies helpful on your journey to success. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform to help us reach more people like you. To learn more about Arash and Mykie and how Voss Coach & Co. can help you achieve your goals and reach new levels of success, visit vosscoachandco.com. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of 7-Figure Standard.